Hey there, my friend. It's Tricia Carr. Real quick before we head into this episode, I just want to make sure that you know about Modern Mystic Life, a subscription service for spiritual mentoring and education. The monthly subscription is only $11.11 per month. We have regular support and inspiration delivered with the utmost ease right into your text messenger 2 to 4 times per week. You can use your mobile device or your desktop messenger to access the lessons and meditations, a monthly MP3 download of a produced meditation, at least once per month live meditation led by me. There is no account login, and we have a monthly live class workshop. These are usually $35 for non-subscribers, so it is quite a deal. And the community is amazing. This is a way for you to support the Charmed Life podcast and also a way for us to be able to work more closely together. So do check out how you can subscribe in the show notes. I hope to see you there. Hello and welcome to the Charmed Life podcast. This podcast is all about magic, metaphysics, mysticism, and the unconditional love of the universe, and I am your host. My name is Tricia Carr. This is a really cool episode. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode. And if it's your first time here, well, I hope that you will subscribe and come back, share, and, see if there's some way that you want to get involved in the communities that I have going. For example, I do have Modern Mystic Life, which is a very low cost subscription. It's a membership. It's a way that you can support the Charmed Life podcast. It's only $11.11 per month. And what you get for that is really incredible. First of all, I said community. Community is so important because it helps us to ground in this loving, spiritual, compassionate life that we have. That's why you're here. I know it. If you're a spiritual seeker, it's because you are here to live a life of compassion. And the community in the spaces, that's really what helped me to just skyrocket my spiritual development, but also my personal development. And because you just, with this community, you are witnessed and encouraged for who you really and truly are. So Modern Mystic Life is one of those places where we do have a workshop every month, a 2-hour workshop, and a live group meditation every month. And then you get the replays of those, which are also invaluable. I call it time traveling when you listen to a replay. Like right now, you're listening to a recording, but we're together, aren't we? We're really together. I feel you. And so in addition to that, there's this text subscription offering that comes with it 2 to 4 times per week. I'm sending you exclusive content, either from teaching or other meditations or energy updates and things like that. So it's something you're only going to get by subscribing, again, to this very, very low cost, $11.11 per month. And then those live offerings where you actually interact with other beautiful, incredible spiritual seekers. And right now I'm in this series of offering channeled messages to those who show up, the attendees, but it's really fantastic in the replay as well, because you're like, how are they saying exactly my thing that I needed? That's what's so magical about it. So check out Modern Mystic Life, but also I would love for you to leave a review here. That's whether you are new to the podcast or if you've been around for a while. That would really, really help. Just scroll down in your app and you'll find a way to be able to do that. But thank you so much for being a spiritual seeker and someone who is seeking magic, metaphysics, mysticism, and the unconditional love of the universe, higher consciousness. That is making this world go round. So I have a really cool guest on today in this episode, and I really enjoyed our conversation, and I really want to continue to work together because we live fairly local to one another. And so this conscious conversation is going to really, I feel, inspire you. And afterward, I want to invite you to stay on because I'm going to do a little chat that is inspiring and a free gift that you'll be able to help to expand in all of this contemplation. So without further delay, allow me to welcome you into this conversation with Whitney Aronoff, a supportive health personal chef in Laguna Beach, California. Whitney is passionate about wellness, the vibration of food, and supporting others in living their best life. Chef Whitney attended a culinary school of the Natural Gourmet Institute in New York City and went on to work at a farm-to-table restaurant in New York and in Newport Beach. As a personal chef, she prepares custom meals and dinner parties for her clients and shares her seasonal recipes on Starseed Kitchen. Knowing that a healthy diet is just one layer of being well, in 2021, Whitney launched the podcast High Vibrational Living with Chef Whitney Aronoff. She interviews experts on healthy eating, cooking, wellness, beauty, travel, and spirituality to help others find the modalities and tips to help them feel their best. Chef Whitney aims to invite people into their kitchen, feeling empowered to make healthy choices for themselves and their loved ones, and to experience high vibration living. I'm actually on the podcast. I don't know when you're listening to this at this time that I'm recording this. My episode has not been published, but if you're following me on Instagram, or if you sign up for my newsletter, which is the best place to get information about any and all things, really cool stuff, that's how you'll get the notification for when I'm on Whitney's podcast. But go find High Vibration Living with Whitney Aronoff, Chef Whitney. Now, what I chat with us, we talk in the conversation you're going to hear in a bit about eating locally as much as possible and the gift and the benefit of that, and just, nature in general. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the healing power of nature and how you can intuitively connect with nature. So stick around for the end there. And again, like I said, there's a free gift. And what I really love about this, I want to highlight as we enter this conversation, is the empowered feeling of making healthy choices. Because if we are, not making healthy choices, sometimes we feel shame about it. And I want us to move out from that. I've had to go on different kinds of, as we all do, health journeys for, which involve making different food choices, whether it's for reducing extra weight or other things that I can't even figure out what choices aren't healthy for me. It's not like I'm overtly making unhealthy choices, but needing to calibrate that so that it is better attuned for my well-being. So again, just highlighting that, because that's a place we're coming from. It's very inspired. Whitney with her Starseed Kitchen, I mean, come on, got to be inspiring, right? So welcome to this conversation with Chef Whitney, and I will chat with you on the other side. Welcome to the show, Whitney Aronoff. Thanks for being here, Whitney.
Absolutely. That was such a great story about animal communication that you shared.
It's really awesome. There's so many. I forget not just from my students, but my own. But that one I kind of honed in. I wanted to share with people. But thank you so much. Thank you for coming on the podcast, for sharing your light on this platform. I appreciate
Yeah, absolutely. Well, your community is into learning how to better able to tap
it.
in, listen to messages, communicate with people in a variety of different ways, as well as animals. And one of the things that helps us do that is the food that we put in our body. When we edit our diet,
Mm,
it will help our psychic abilities increase, improve, expand.
I love it.
And, why not?
I love
Why
it.
not expand that skill and do so in a way that makes us happy by enjoying really good foods?
So how long have you been a chef? And tell us about Starseed Kitchen, and
Mhm.
tell us about all the work that you're doing. I'm sorry, I'm a little excited. I need to calm myself
Yeah.
down.
No, I love it. So I've been a chef since 2015
Mhm.
is when I left my corporate job and I went to culinary school
Mm,
because I wanted to learn how to heal myself with foods.
mm,
I was so frustrated with not feeling like I was getting the information I needed from doctors that I went to or books that I read on really how to nourish myself and stop having any digestive issues. And,
yeah,
like most women, like, what do I really need to eat to be healthy, but have a manageable weight and feel and look good in my body? And I just felt like, I'm the one that's in this vessel. If I could just go get the tools, then I can make it happen for myself instead of trying to go to all these people and ask questions, and no one's giving me really any information that's supporting me. So that's when I went to culinary school. I went to a health supportive culinary
Mm.
school, and I learned so much that I felt like was information that everyone deserved to have. And that's what I'm trying to do, is just help people understand how food should make them feel good, how it's fuel, how it's simply a transfer of energy.
Mhm.
And then at the same time, I'm someone who has natural psychic abilities, like really we
We
all
all do,
do.
yeah.
And I noticed as I edited and cleaned up my diet, my abilities became stronger
Yes.
and expanded. And I was able to tap into more of who I really am. And just want to help pass that information along to other people so they can do it as well, if they so choose.
That's amazing, and how synchronistic the story that I shared before we started about my animal communication client, I mean, not client, but my animal communication graduate, Betty, who tapped in with the doggy who wasn't drinking the water. And we're talking about the same thing, that he would have otherwise, if she hadn't known to, just change the water, give him the water that is healthy for him, that is medicinal for him,
Hmm.
because he was sensitive to the impurities in tap water, then he would have been going to the doctor looking for something that actually wasn't even there. And that's often the case with what we're putting in our body so far as
Hmm.
our food. And what I found, first of all, I wanted to, one of those golden nuggets was to edit our diet. That's, there's a freedom to that. We're just going to do some editing. There's no,
Yeah.
yes, it's cleaning up, but sometimes we feel we have some association to changing the diet. The changing the diet, that's something that the subconscious mind is really worried about. Subconscious mind says, okay, we have known associations, we need to protect them because all of these things that have happened so far, we haven't died yet. So change is hard for us. We have a strong drive for homeostasis. So just a little reframe like that, like edit. Oh, I don't use that word that often, so I don't have a lot of known associations. Or when I do use it, it's to make something prettier, like I edit a photo or an edit a video.
Yeah, it's more approachable,
Yeah.
right? So if you look at what you're eating for breakfast, lunch, and dinner and snacks, take a look and just see what's processed,
Mhm.
what's maybe from a box that can be edited to be a real or whole food.
Mhm.
So a simple example would be if you're someone that makes chili, why don't you try making your chili with real tomatoes instead of canned tomatoes? Tomatoes are in season. You can just dice them up and put them into the chili. They don't have to be canned. That's really a convenience.
Mhm.
It's not a necessity for the recipe. Another example would be broth. So if you're using vegetable broth or chicken broth or bone broth in a recipe and you're using a boxed version, that's a pasteurized version. So pasteurization means, lack of life force
Yeah.
energy, right?
Mhm.
And we're eating for life force energy. So instead of getting the box version, maybe go to the frozen food section where there's more life force energy in the food and use that instead. If you can't use that, make it at home. If you don't want to do that, maybe try using water and using filtered water. But I like to approach things as little edits. And as you start to do one a week, it'll just start snowballing, where next thing you know, you've kind of upgraded everything in your diet and you'll physically and mentally, spiritually feel better.
Yes. Because to your point about how your psychic, your intuitive abilities, and you're pointing to your pineal gland, the
Mhm.
pineal gland is very, very much, it's basically the physicalized version of the third eye. And so with impurities, then it will, maybe that's what the doggy was, the doggy who didn't want to drink the water. He's like, yo, I need to be able to see spirit. So give me better water. Because there's actually in our tap water, there's a lot of fluoride and there's other things that can cause calcification to the pineal gland. And so removing the obstacles of the body needing to process things that actually there are things that we put in our body that it literally can't process. It just has to eventually release. Actually we don't have enzymes to break down gluten. That's why there's so many more gluten allergies and intolerances and celiac disease than there was before, because, and people are like, well, why now before? Because the bread that we make now has more gluten in it, the industrialized version of how it's grown, how the wheat is grown, and then also how the bread is not leavened, because the leavening process, actually the yeast would eat the wheat, or excuse me, not the wheat, would eat the gluten. And so with a proper leavening process or with proper growth without the genetic modifications, then we have a lot less gluten in bread. And that's why, but we can't actually break down gluten. And so if there's so much more gluten, we don't have the enzymes for it. There we have the inflammation. And it's just eventually our body has to rid itself of it. Well, that's just one example. But to your point about tomatoes, there's nuances to the fact we have to find out what's right for our body, because something as perfectly, you know, generally speaking, high vibrational, like a banana, even if it's fair trade and it's alive, like I have an inflammatory response to banana. Nothing wrong with
Well,
bananas
and
generally, just for me.
the banana, yeah, the banana wasn't grown in your neighborhood, right?
Right. And
So your banana was grown in another country
mm-hmm,
and was shipped to this country.
mm-hmm,
Bananas are naturally picked
yeah.
green. So my aunt and uncle actually have a banana
Oh, I
farm
love it.
in
Uh-huh.
Maui. And so I've learned so much about bananas. And you do take them off the tree when they're
Mm-hmm,
green, and then you put them on your front porch or in a room in your house and you let them hang and they ripen off the tree. That is actually how you're supposed to do it. So it lends itself to be a great food to be shipped internationally. But there's a lot of things that happen to our food when it gets shipped into this country. And depending on whether it's organic or not, it gets sprayed with ingredients that are meant to protect our environment here in the US so bugs don't come in, or it gets irradiated, so it gets zapped
mm-hmm,
with radiation, or it gets sprayed with something to help it ripen faster. So you, the consumer, find it more interesting to pick up at the grocery store. So a lot of things can happen to that fruit when it comes into the country. So we're really better off picking something that's
mm-hmm,
local. So something that's growing seasonally in your state or in your county is always going to be better for your body for a variety of reasons. You're having something local, so it's going to help you connect with your land
mm-hmm,
and your soil and support, your healthy digestive bugs. It's going to help you connect and sync with the season by eating the food that's growing right now. It's going to be more nutritionally
mm-hmm,
dense. So there's going to be a bigger life force energy transfer because it was just picked a day or two or three ago, not a week ago.
mm-hmm.
So I always think, bananas are great, mangoes are great. All these different fruits and vegetables are delicious and fantastic. But when things are shipped from outside the United States, I consider them treats.
Mm-hmm.
Like having a banana is more of a treat, having a mango is more of a treat. Having plums that are in season that grow in Southern California is much more beneficial for my body. And depending on who you are and your sensitivity level, you might eat it and have a better feeling and reaction
Mhm.
afterwards.
Yes. Oh my gosh. What you don't know about me is my background before I was doing this career. I was in the culinary arts too. I was a mixologist, and
Oh,
so yeah.
wow.
So you know about. Have you worked in restaurants, or if you always worked
Yes.
independently? Okay, so then you know.
No, I have worked in restaurants.
So you know
Yes.
about the distribution company Southern Wine and Spirits. It's now called Southern Glazers. So
Yes.
the
Yes.
last 8 years of that career, I worked for Southern as the director of mixology for Southern California. So I would go around
Wow.
to all of the restaurants and bars and hotels in Southern California, teach them about, you know, obviously how to make beautiful, I was always going for beautiful cocktails that were balanced with fresh ingredients with the products that, we have. But in that process too, learning about distillation, I
Ah.
also, it's very much what we're talking about here, because if we're talking about the fermentation process and then distillation, and so I was trying to expound that inspiration to these people. They're like, yo, we just need a margarita that sells. Okay. Like, be quiet, lady. No, sometimes they were very into it. But so I'm very excited about everything that you're talking about, because it's something that I've connected to very passionately. But even before I was in the culinary field, I remember in my 20s looking at what you're talking about, the indigeneity of the food that we eat, because we are an ecosystem. We are a part of the
Mhm.
ecosystem as much as any other aspect of the ecosystem. This is why you can't bring certain fruits across state borders, or animals across, from Mexico to US and vice versa, because what their balance is wouldn't be correct for that ecosystem. So one thing that's really incredible to think of that we're dancing around is the microbial terroir. So terroir means the soil. And I know you know this.
Mhm.
I'm just like bringing up an interesting topic along with you.
Yeah.
Terroir means soil, and it's what we talk about like with for growing things. It's the it's the life of the soil and the balance of it and the nutrients of it and everything. So there's a certain kind of terroir quotient, health, and viability. But there's also a microbial, we're borrowing the word terroir, of the air. And it's all of the
Mhm.
microscopic little critters, little creatures. Yeast is one of them. So if a yeast goes and nibbles on this banana, and then he goes and nibbles on a mango, and you're like, this mango kind of has a banana flavor. It's because there's a yeast, a little guy who ate and processed banana and then ate and processed mango, and there's literally banana in the mango. You know what I mean? Like those kinds of things are. So then just thinking about that guy, being able to send these messages and life force the way you're talking about it. And then that's why it's, we are giving to them and they are giving to us, and the ecosystem is balancing itself. So there's this subtle, beautiful, it's actually physical, but because we can't see it, it feels like spiritual. You know what I mean? But just because
Mhm.
we can't see spirit doesn't mean it's not there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything's communicating with each other, whether we can hear it
Yeah.
at the same sound resonance that it's operating from
Mhm.
or not.
Mhm.
It's all communicating.
Yeah. And sometimes when we're listening to someone as brilliant as you talk about how we think about, contemplate, pick our diet, our food, and editing it, people get really overwhelmed because they're like, "How can I?"
Mhm.
And then the kind of objection about cost and everything. How can you help people to sort out that anxiety that can show up about, well, wait, how do I make it work? And I'm too overwhelmed already with my life.
Well, one thing I've always found very interesting being in the food space is people often don't want to spend money on food, on the exact thing that nourishes
Yeah.
themselves and makes them look and feel good and operate in this world with a clear head and a strong body and mind. It's it's really interesting to see how they prefer to spend their money on
Mhm.
entertainment, on skincare, on clothes, on cars. There's a lot of way that you can use your money. So, in order to I think first thing is people need to change their mindset
Mhm.
that food should be cheap.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
think that's really important. I think when people see that food is cheap, they should ask why.
Mm.
They should ask why something's $1.99 at a drive-through, but if they try to make it from scratch themselves, it costs more money. But when you make your food yourself, you control all the ingredients. It is the healthiest meal you can possibly eat is the one you make at home because you get to choose the quality of all the ingredients. You can have that physical resonance with the food. So when you walk up and you're trying to choose a tomato or an avocado or an apple and you pick up a few before you find the right one, more is going on than just you feeling if it's ripe.
Mhm.
You're having a connection with the item that you're pulling. That's the right resonance for you.
Mhm.
Same when go to the butcher and you get protein or anything else in the grocery store. You're When you choose it yourself, you're connecting with the right thing for
Mhm.
you. And then you're taking that back to the kitchen and you're bringing your attitude and your mindset, whether it's positive or negative, and it's going into your meal. And that's all the collective energy together is what's fueling and nourishing you. But it doesn't have to be
Mhm.
complicated. You can just be making some brown rice,
Mhm.
some steamed vegetables, and, a little olive oil. It can be as simple as that. You can be grilling, you can be baking. Good food isn't complicated. You can simplify it. And when you start doing it yourself, you'll better understand what works for you.
Mm.
I think a lot of things that people don't realize is, your food tastes really good when you go out and eat. Um, and the people that are preparing your food know about salt and pepper, the basics. They know they're using good quality pans and cooking techniques. And those are all things that you can learn at home. I always encourage people just to learn 3 meals. Like pick 3 things that you want to know how to do and do well and get good at them and make them at least 3 times. 3 is the magic number in
Yeah.
spirituality, isn't it? You ask your guides and angels 3 times when you need help or when you need an answer. I think the same thing comes in the kitchen. When you want to get really good at a new recipe, you need to make it at least 3 times to master it. And if you can learn 3 things, have 3 recipes in your tool belt, that can really nourish you and get you going. And I think people just need to stop. You need to decide why you're making excuses as to why nourishing yourself is expensive or time consuming or whatever excuse you're wanting to put behind it, and figure out, what's really going on there that you're wanting to not nourish yourself.
And we will be right back. Hi, friend. It's Tricia Carr with an invitation for you if you are ready to accelerate your ascension and connect to the swift flow of your life mission. Mind Body Ascension Acceleration Coaching. All of my clinical training, my experience from teaching and providing countless sessions and classes, one-on-one group coaching, healing, reading, teaching, channeling, as well as my calibration as a human design reflector. I'm offering all of this to you to step up your entire life, to accelerate your ascension walk. If you've had a single session with me, if you've had coaching, or if you've experienced transformation from any of my offerings, my classes, podcasts, videos, well, this is an accelerated and exponentially charged. This is what my soul has prepared for an eternity and up to now. And if you hear this call, then this is also co-created with your soul. Your life is meant to be joy first and a service as a close and integrated second. This coaching is especially tuned for high achievers who want to accelerate their progress on their life mission and create mind-body well-being and higher attunement. Submit to work with me in this powerful container, this premium coaching. If you feel the call, you can do it. I guide, you take action. I hold the resonant projection field, channel your steps, and you take action. The first action step is to fill out an application, the link to which you will find in the description. Be prepared, be ready to upgrade your mind-body ascension and your connection and flow with your spiritual mission. And now back to the show. When I've been on a weight loss, or I like to say body composition restructuring or a release of density that I don't need, that's where I have to start. I don't just start with change the habits. I start inside first. Why am I picking things that are, rather than medicine, more poison for me? And where do I need to nurture myself in that? The other thing, comes that I've noticed, if we're eating certain foods and whatever we're eating, it does affect the microbiome, which, as you said, the good bugs. Those are, again, alive. You have a society of alive beings inside your gut. I mean, obviously we have that all over our body that we don't think about, but inside your gut, you have this society that is an ecosystem balancing itself. So if we put something in there that it has to figure out how to do it. So certain parts of the society that can manage breaking that down, it populates it maybe even overpopulates, and that's how we're getting the gut issues. That's how we're getting a little bit of war, because we've got too many of these kinds of guys in there. And so then when we start to, again, edit or change our diet, those are, again, alive. They have consciousness. If they sense inside your body that you're thinking about killing them, letting them die, they will fight back a little bit. That's their job. They're like, no, we have a job to do. And so those kinds of subtle little messages are happening, but it's healthy for us to let them basically starve and be released, and then to let the population come back into a healthier balance. It's kind of funny. I'm imagining like all of these like little beings inside of me. Something
Well, if
enchanting.
if the listener's finding, if you're finding that you want to change your diet, if you want to edit,
Mhm.
if there's something that just needs to drop off, whether it's drinking coffee, having a certain dessert every night, stopping your fast food habit, whatever it is, again, it's
3.
that power of
Yeah.
3. So if you can let it go for 3 days, it will then just fall off
Mm.
and you will be free. So just know those 3 days might be
Mhm.
challenging, but when you can make it through 3 days without that processed food or that soda or whatever it is that consciously isn't serving you anymore and you need to let go of, hold on for 3 days and then it will just drop away
That's so
and it
good to know.
won't be in your life anymore.
And then while you're in those 3 days and it's challenging you, just get really mindful, breathe through it, and it gives you the opportunity to refine your mindset about, "Oh, this is why I'm doing it, and it's only 3 days," you know what I mean? So, you're kinda, like, negotiating, but it's all changing in that time. Can I a do you know your human design? I wanna know. Do you know what you
Yes, the only what I know is I'm a manifester.
Okay.
I don't
You don't know
know
your
the number
profile?
details.
I would love to know your
Yes.
profile because it's so interesting that you're talking about the power of 3. Well, first of all, 3 is a charm, right? And this is called Charmed Life. There's so many, like yeah.
Yeah.
But if you look it up, I would love to know your profile. It could be in another area if it's not your main, personality profile. But, yeah,
Yeah, I was just looking it up in my notes just to see if I have it written
yeah,
anywhere.
I'd love to know that. Because the 3 it is a very magical, there's no, um, coincidence. It's not just a coincidence that it is used in magic. It really is something that what is it? Did you find your profile?
Oh, no, I'm still
Oh,
looking, but I agree it's
yeah.
really interesting how it's used in
Mhm,
magic and spirituality, in connecting with guides and angels.
mhm.
It's everywhere. We can't, the number 3 is a part of the number of time.
Yeah. And it's also you think about, um, Maiden Mother Crone, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, all of these different aspects of Father, Mother, Child, all of these threes that make this creation. Also think about protons, neutrons, and electrons, and think about God, creature, and then that third consciousness that is the observer of God and creature, and lots of ways that the 3 is this powerful number of creation. But as you're still looking at did you find
Yeah.
it?
I didn't find it, but, I did find my
Oh,
notes. I love numerology,
mhm,
and, in numerology, 3 is the number of energy,
yeah.
communication, and wit.
And expression and joy even, yes. And in human design, the 3 line is the trial and error, uh,
Hmm,
expert, which I when I tell people that, they're like, "Oh, great, errors, like, right there and then" no, but trial and error is the most primitive and most utilizable the most utilized method for human learning. And so a person
mhm.
who has a strength of 3 in their profile, then that means that they have a knack, they have a talent in the most fundamental way that humans learn. So 3 days, 3 times, make the meal 3 times, have 3 meals that you master before you start to consider moving on. Yeah, very, very powerful. I love this, focus that we're
Yeah,
on.
cause and effect.
Yeah,
I was
that's
just
it.
listening
Yes.
to a Dr. Joe Dispenza, recording last
Mhm,
night, and he was talking about, essentially the old way of learning and expanding is cause and
mhm,
effect. And that there are new ways for us to create change that are more quantum,
mhm.
meaning when we dive into meditation and focus on the reality that we want, we can move into that space faster.
Yes.
So if you want to make a change in your diet, you want to make a change in your health, you want to make a change in how you look and feel, taking the time to get quiet and imagining yourself already being that way will help you move to it faster and will make the transition of making little edits in your life a lot easier. Because, right, we all want ease and grace
Mhm,
and flow
mhm.
as we make changes. It doesn't have to be hard.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to feel like we're, moving through wet concrete. We can make changes and it can feel good along the way. It can move faster than we expect.
Yeah, it's like with cause and effect, those are valuable, but that's binary, that's duality. But if we bring in that
Mhm.
the awareness, as you're talking about, and we observe cause and effect, well, we have information with the cause and the effect, or the trial and the error. But the third piece, which is the magical piece, is able to actually make something better from those two pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, beyond our belief systems
Mhm,
or our limiting belief
mhm,
systems. So I always try, when people are thinking about new foods to eat or new ways of enjoying breakfast, lunch, dinner,
mhm,
snacks, I try to remind them you're not just nourishing your physical body and your taste
mhm.
buds. You have a physical body, an emotional body, a spiritual body, and a mental body. And we want all of those to be nourished through our meals and our actions and our mindsets, so we're all in balance. So again, it's just being able to move through life with just more ease and grace and joy.
Oh gosh. I'm very curious now, like how do you work with people? What is and I also want to
Yeah.
hear more about exactly what Starseed Kitchen is, because you're talking about some other things that we love. We love to get into the benevolent ET guides and that Starseed connection. But yeah, practically pragmatically, how do you spread besides giving this wonderful generous information and teaching that you're giving? But yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So the best way that I can reach the most people is through my podcast, the High Vibration Living
Love it.
podcast, where I have similar conversations like this on there and help people, learn these teachings, what I've learned in culinary school and working as a chef. But then I also work, full time as a one-on-one personal chef for
Oh,
families where
love
I
that.
go to their
Mhm,
homes and I cook their food and it's completely custom to them.
mhm.
And then additionally, I've been making my own organic spice blends for many, many years. And my spice blends, again, all organic ingredients, real sea salt, no anti caking agents, no added colors, no MSG, none of the junk that, I was having to avoid at the grocery stores for my clients and myself. So that line of the organic spice blends are called Starseed Kitchen. And that was the best way I could help transfer energy into people no matter where they are in the world. If they're cooking dinner for themselves, whether they're roasting a whole chicken or roasting potatoes, they could put my spices on there and I can transfer energy to them
Mhm.
through the spice blends because one, the spice blends are not just anti inflammatory, but they're superfoods. So they're the dried herbs and spices all ground up, transferring nutritional density and digestive health to you. But then when I prepare my spice blends, I hand blend everything. So I'm able to use Kundalini mantras, high vibration music. I charge them with what are called quartz Giza crystals to infuse the food, infuse the spices, and then transfer it on to you.
I love this. This is some kitchen witchery. It's so good. It's like, it's ancient. We've been that women especially, primarily, I would
Yeah.
say, and in a lot of the cultures have been doing this wisdom for a very long time. It's so good.
Yeah. And you know what? You guys can do it at home. So before I blend the spices, I sage myself
Mhm,
and I set an intention. And everyone can do the same thing in their kitchen, in their home. They can sage themselves and their kitchen space before they make Thanksgiving dinner or holiday dinner or birthday dinner. They can set the intention on what they want to go into the food, the energy, the experience that they want their friends and family to have when they eat the food.
mhm,
They can turn on high vibration music. They can play, White Sun. They can put on all these different Kundalini mantras that will affect them
mhm.
and the food, and they'll all work together to create an elevated meal. And then they can be mindful about what else they have in the kitchen. So, if they know there's going to be a lot of people in the house, they can put some selenite in the kitchen. So it absorbs everyone's energy and just constantly clean and clears the space naturally without even trying. Or you can put some quartz crystal in there because we know quartz, just takes energy and expands it. So if you know you're going to be positive and happy in the kitchen, you can just put quartz in there and
Yeah,
expand that while you're cooking.
yeah.
So, you know, these tools are available to everybody if you want to learn and you want to try.
Yes. Oh, I love it so much. I have when I was making cocktails more often, and my husband would say, like, we just don't we've never really been big drinkers, but when I was making them more, it was more like we'd think about it a little bit more. My husband would be like, "I want a cocktail," like we're at home. "I want a cocktail, but I don't want you to make it. I want to make it." I'm like, "Okay, perfect." He's like, "Can you
Oh,
walk me
yeah.
through?" each step. And I'll tell him exactly. He goes, it's not going to taste the same. Well, first of all, there's his mindset. And he would walk him through it. I'd tell him the exact technique. I would even or whatever it was. And he'd be like, I mean, it's good because all the ingredients are good, but it's not the same as when you do it. And maybe it is because of his mindset, but also he wants some love from his wife, right? Like there's a different impact that comes through when he's receiving something that I have infused. And there's maybe some subtle movements and technique, like you talked about. But we're using the exact same ingredients and the exact same
Yeah.
tools. So the only difference is the hands and the heart that are touching it. So maybe this conversation is also helping people to feel inspired about self-love, how I'm really curating self-love when I make my food for myself or for my family or for my friends. It's all there.
Preparing food and serving it to people, to a loved one, is one of the best ways to
Yeah.
connect,
It's very intimate. It's
because
very intimate.
it's so
Mhm.
intimate. And I think one of my one of my goals is to help and invite people back into the kitchen to cook for their loved ones or their partner, because it will help you connect again. It will help you connect on a very, very deep, spiritual, heart centered level, because you're preparing the food, you're putting your energy into it. That person's accepting the meal, consuming it, and putting the energy into themselves. There's an incredible transfer of energy that happens that helps reconnect you unconsciously.
Mhm.
And I think it's so important the way we nourish each other in relationship.
So romantic. And I remember my first dates with my husband. There was cooking between
Mhm.
us. We were cooking together.
Aw.
It was very important for us. And I remember telling my girlfriends before I met my husband, there were two things that I needed from a partner that I were kind of like, I mean, they were non-negotiable, and that was they had to be able to love animals. It doesn't mean they have to have a million animals and be crazy like I am about them, but they had to have a connection or an openness with animals, just to be able to see an animal and be like and be marveled by them. The other one was to actually food. It was just to be interested in food, because there's some
Mhm.
people, and I have like there's one particular friend that I'm thinking of. He's not listening, and I'm not gonna call him out to it. But this thing about him where he's just like, it's just like he thinks, I mean, his belief or his practice is, I can't cook, I don't cook. Everything I buy or someone makes for me. And then he like shows up and he eats it. And sure, it's like it tastes good or whatever. But see, I needed someone who had to be in the process at least some of the time in a passionate way. Like those were two non-negotiables for me. I'm just kind of really identifying the importance of that.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, the one of the best dates I've ever had in my life, like, was when I was in college, and a guy cooked for
Yeah.
me. And thoughtfully, I'm not a big drinker. I
Mhm.
I can't even tell you the last time I've had a glass of wine, but he like very thoughtfully chose a bottle of wine and
Mhm.
told me the story about why he chose this wine.
Oh.
And then told me the story about why he chose this meal, and cooked it all and set the table and invited me over. And,
That's hot. That's
obviously,
hot.
I'm not with that person. I'm sure they're married with kids now, but it was one of the most incredible dates that I've ever been
Yeah.
on, just because of the time that they took to create that special
Yeah.
experience, the energy that was transferred. It was so unique. And, I love going out to
Mhm.
eat and having experiences and traveling and enjoying the food. But then you take those experiences back to your home and back to your kitchen and figure out how to invite them into your life, into your everyday, and then share it with others through having little dinner parties or meals at home.
Oh gosh, this has been so incredible. I feel like we have to get together sometime in person.
Yes,
Actually
absolutely.
actually, we are, I'm just gonna say it boldly, everyone. I'm starting an events company with a friend of mine,
Fabulous.
and
Yeah.
so the first ones are coming up in August and September. And, they're going to include, spiritual experiences, but I'm just, like, seeing, like I wanna see if we'll see sometime. Maybe we could do an event. Wouldn't that be amazing?
Yeah,
Also
absolutely.
multi-stream so it's not just they're not only local, but we'll actually be you'll be able to join virtually too. So we'll talk about that sometime. Be so fun. I would love that. And are you doing anything like
Me
that? Or are you
Yeah.
doing do you do demonstrations? I mean, I want you to have your own TV show. Like
I do too. From from your lips to all the angels' ears. Absolutely. I mean, my number one goal is to teach everyone how to nourish
Mhm.
themselves with food and get them back into the kitchen, because really the healthiest meal you will ever eat is the one that you make at home. So once you learn how to nourish yourself, then you can outsource it to somebody else, but no one
Yeah.
can ever help you understand what works for you.
Mhm.
That's the inside job. And right now, I always look for opportunities to cook for more people. In the fall and November, I'm going to be one of the guest chefs at the Ecology Center
Mm.
for the Ecology Center Friday night farm to table dinners. So I'm always looking for opportunities to get to cook for more people,
Love it.
um, in settings like that.
Oh, that's so great. Oh, let me go ahead and put your links up here too. We have the starseedkitchen.com, pretty great. And this is where they will find everything about you, or is this specifically for your amazing spices, your witchery?
Absolutely. They can find everything on starseedkitchen.com. And if you guys use the code STARSEED, you can get a discount at checkout. That'll help cover part of the cost of shipping for you guys. But then you can also get all the recipes on there that I actually use as a personal chef. So I try to share what I do as a chef for individuals. You can get those recipes there and cook from home. And then if you're ever just kind of low on inspiration for what to make for dinner or what to make for the week, I share the recipes of my personal chef clients on my Instagram, Whitney Aronoff.
Nice.
So you can get a little inspo there. And, no reason to ever lack in, healthy seasonal meal ideas.
And you have to slow down sometimes. It's okay. It's good. We do it mindfully. I don't have time. Well, then we we need to carve out some of that over busyness, overwhelm for some self-nurturing, some self-love. So that's so beautiful, Whitney. I'm so excited. Put all of the links of how we can connect with Whitney are in the description in the show notes. And I really want to keep connecting and collaborating.
Me
It'd be
too.
amazing. Definitely got to get
Me
on, got to
too.
listen to that podcast. You have guests on, and as well as doing solo episodes on the podcast, Starseed Kitchen.
Yes, on the High Vibration Living
High
podcast. So
vibration.
I bring on people that talk about and can help you just better understand how to nourish your physical,
Mhm.
emotional, spiritual, and mental
Yeah.
bodies, because we have four of them
Mhm.
and we need to be mindful of all of them. And there's just so many modalities out
Yeah.
there to help us now. Like, what an awesome time to live. We get to learn about food, health, fitness, wellness, crystals, new energy machines. It's
Mhm.
just endless information out there that can support us, as well as just learning about high vibration places,
Yeah.
learning about places we can travel to throughout the world that just stepping on the land can support us, stepping in the water and the hot springs can support us. There's just so many tools out there for us all right now. And I just want to help people learn about them so they don't feel stuck,
Mm.
because there's opportunities to expand everywhere.
I have to see your human design chart. I'm like, does she have gates 5 or 15?
Okay, I'll send it
You
to you
gotta.
after we
You gotta.
chat.
Because
Okay.
5 and 15 are the nature are the psychic abilities for nature, for connecting with nature so much. I mean, there's also other reasons. Anyway, so we'll chat
Yeah,
about
I'm
that.
gonna send it to you after.
All right. Well, this is wonderful, everyone. This is Whitney Aronoff, High Vibe Foods and the Starseed Kitchen. Check it all out. Find her podcast. Thank you for coming on and shining your light on this podcast. I appreciate you.
My pleasure. So glad we connected.
So good. I love that she has those spices. That's really good kitchen witchery. And man, such good stuff, such good heart. And I, as I mentioned, I was in the culinary industry in the arena of beverages and as a mixologist, and you know, I was working very much like Whitney. I was working farm to table or farm to glass, actually, as it is for drinks. And it one of my favorite things, actually, I had this little stint of doing these parties, just like um, beverage catering, parties that were with famous people. I'm not going to name drop because that's weird. But there was a famous person who I don't remember how she found me, and she invited me, and she's like, "Well, we're having this party." Actually, I'll just go ahead and say it because she was so wonderful, and she recommended me to a lot of people. Jennifer Grey, from Dirty Dancing and many other things. She's so wonderful. And she's just so sweet. Now, it was ages ago now. I met Jennifer in 2008. But anyway, it started with Jennifer wanting me to do a beverage catering for, I don't remember whose birthday it was, hers or her husband at the time was Clark Gregg or her daughter. But it was an adult party. And it was like, she was like, we're sober, we don't drink, but some of our guests do. Is there anything you can do? And I had already started this habit, this way that I was actually beverage catering my own parties, where I'd make this beautiful agua fresca, which was like, it's a light and refreshing beverage that has fruit juices, but I would do them in a much more complex way where I have like lavender mojito, non-alcoholic, but like it had mint and it had lavender, lime, and but with a lot of sparkling water. So it was actually refreshing, not like a really sweet drink in any way, not even like really dense insofar as having a lot of, complexity, something that's really potable. Or I did like a grapefruit and a grapefruit and basil with like actual basil oil on at the surface of the drink. And then you could spike it. There's spirits there that people could spike if they wanted to add that to it. And, people really loved it. Jennifer loved it, and she kept recommending me to people. And it was really fun there for, I think, about a year or two. I can't remember. But working with the ingredients is so attuning. And I think we all know, right? The nature is so healing and attuning. And in fact, if you're really exhausted, taking a walk in nature, even if your body is physically tired, as long as it's non-competitive and you're not pushing, it actually gives you energy. Because nature is like an energy center for us. Not like Mother Earth is an energy center for us. She gives us life. And if you can, I just want to invite you to put that in your life if it hasn't been fitting in, or if it needs to be expanded, because I know when that slips for me, all of my health just is compromised, being in nature. And then, of course, being able to, as much as possible, pick foods that are more local. I'll just give you one tip, that is that there's this thing with tomatoes. I've talked about it before, I think, on the podcast or maybe on my YouTube channel, that there's this unfortunate thing with the tomatoes in the US. If you're buying them out of season and non-locally, they are probably pretty unhealthy. And so this is why. For some reason, there's the industry of tomatoes, which they would call conventionally grown, which just really means like there are no regulations when they say that. They're grown in Florida in the sand. And even if you don't have a green thumb, you can probably guess, like, is there anything growing on the beach? No, it's washing up. Kelp washes up from the ocean. There are no plants growing out of sand. Sand is not a viable soil for growing plants. So what they have to do in order to make sand something that tomato plants can grow out of is really radical and very, very poisonous chemical treatment. The people that work in tending these crops, if you can call it that, they're getting very, very sick because of being around these chemicals. The tomatoes don't taste like tomatoes. They're not right. So, I just want to give one example. Buy tomatoes locally that are in season. They're a summer fruit. And so, just for example, but the thing about buying locally is because we are nature, and just like, your gut is an ecosystem, the microbiome of it is an ecosystem unto itself. You are also an ecosystem component with everything there. And so the fruit or the vegetables or anything else that is in your diet, it being as local as possible means that you're in symbiosis with it. And then this can help us to, like Whitney was talking about, open up our intuitive abilities. And so if you can fit being in nature into your schedule, whether it's, it's not in there at all right now, or we need to expand it. I feel like it could always be expanded. it will it will turn the magnetism back toward you. And yeah, there are really magical things that you can experience in nature. You can actually speak to a crystal and telepathically receive deep and profound and utilizable messages for you in your life. And of course, you know probably that I'm an animal communicator, and I teach other people how to open this ability of telepathically communicating with animals, both who are incarnated and those who are past, animal mediumship. And it's evidential. The things that people didn't even know, they might be, 50 or 60 years old. They didn't even know they could do this, but it kind of needs a little bit of tuning in order to open it up, some guidance and some learning. And, very specific things that the person could not have known unless, by that the animal has told them. They couldn't have known because they've never been to that person's house. So how could they possibly have known these things? It's really amazing. We can also communicate with nature spirits like fairies and elementals and trees. And I've had many of these experiences. So, not just I've had many of these experiences. This is a part of the services that I offer to my students and my clients as well. And so I wanted to just encourage you to dive into the rich and robust experience of spirit that is in nature. And that, as Whitney was talking about, basically food and that connection is medicine and is spiritual medicine. So I have a gift for you, and that is a mini course that is animal and nature intuitive connection. Has a couple of, I don't remember how many lessons and meditations. It's absolutely free for you. And it guides you to be able to connect either with your own animals or with like nature spirits and it's a mini course. It's a little taste. If you've never had a class with me, this might give you a sense of what you could experience in a class, but it's just something I wanted to give to you. So find the link in the description for that animal and nature intuitive connection, and I think you'll have a blast. And also, of course, find all of Whitney's links in the show notes and find that Starseed kitchen. Oof, I want some of those spices. And just keep shining your light on our beautiful world. It's such a blessing to us all. That's this episode. Thanks for tuning in. I love you, whoever you are.